Back for another episode of the Blacksburg Buzz. It's a really sad week here in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech lost to Baylor in the round of 32, and Coach Kenny Brooks has agreed to a deal with Kentucky to be their new women's basketball coach next year. We're expecting a few transfers, and we know Samaya Suffren has already entered the portal, so we'll have to see who else might join. But first, let's go ahead and cover this game. It was really close all night, neck and neck. Neither team could break away, and it literally came down to the last second. Baylor held a slim lead almost the entire way, and Sarah Andrews started the game off hot in the first quarter. She had 7 points, while Virginia Tech, they just really struggled to shoot on the perimeter. They were 0 for 6 in that first quarter. The only success they could find scoring-wise was on the interior, running to Strack and, some floaters and layups and stuff like that. Second quarter, the shooting really slowed down for both teams. They shot a combined 30% from the floor and only scored 23 total points. Tech was finally able to hit a couple threes in the second quarter, but with the 2 threes and just 2 other shots, Baylor was able to slightly pull away, and they led by 6 at the half. Sarah Andrews kept things going. She ended the half with 14 for Baylor. She was really, really big, important part for the Bears in that first half. But in the second half, she didn't really do much, although she kind of passed the baton to Jada Walker, who just had an insane second half. The third quarter, coming out of the half, was really good for the Hokies. They finally started to hit from range. They tied the game 5 times, and they also briefly took the lead. They were 57% from three-point, which was a huge help for them, especially from Matilda Eck, who hit 3 in that third quarter. But like I said, Jada Walker kind of came out of nowhere at this point in the game. She only had 2 points at halftime, but with her and Andrews switching off, Walker dropped 12 in the third quarter for a total of 14. Her agility and quickness and just being so nimble really helped her get around defenders and make these short jumpers. She wasn't really hitting a lot from deep, but hitting these elbow shots and floaters and such. And then she also hit a half-court heave at the third quarter buzzer, which honestly was kind of the difference in the game. Baylor led by 3 after her shot, and they only won by 3. So if you could have that one back, 72-72, maybe head into overtime, or who knows what else happens with the game. You'd like to have that one back, but you can't really blame the loss on a half-court shot when Virginia Tech, they had a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities in the fourth quarter to take over that they weren't able to capitalize on. Fourth quarter, Tech was right there. They just kept fighting. They got the game down to 1 several times, but they couldn't get over that hump. Jada Walker just kept knocking down shots. She was almost the only person to score in the fourth quarter for Baylor. Bella Fauntleroy scored 1 layup, and Little Paige Buggs scored 2 layups, and the rest was Jada Walker. So she had 14 in the fourth quarter out of Baylor's 20. And they just couldn't shut her down. She's so fast and quick and agile. And Virginia Tech couldn't do much on defense to stop her and slow her down, to provide an opportunity to string a couple buckets together without giving up some points on the defensive end. So while they couldn't stop Walker, they kept going to Strack and Eck. And Amor, she'd been having a really tough time shooting the ball, which hurt Tech a lot. She'd been really struggling from 3 specifically, but with 2 minutes left, she hit a 3 to cut it to a 1-point game. And, you're feeling pretty okay at this point. 1 point, 2 minutes left with Strack on the assist. So we'll break down the last couple plays after this. And, there were a couple scenarios where Tech really could have done something, and just a few costly mistakes that ended up leading them to lose this game. So Amor hits this ridiculously clutch 3 after struggling all game. She only hit 3 total, so this was her second 3. She took 11 in total. So she hits this second 3 for her, cuts the game to 1 with Baylor in the lead, 2 minutes left on the clock. Baylor comes down, and Blackwell misses a jumper, grabs the offensive rebound of her own shot by diving onto it, sort of right in front of the Baylor bench on the baseline, and the Bears call timeout. So coming out of the timeout, they get the ball into Jada Walker, go figure, and she makes a jumper. Bears lead by 3. Virginia Tech, they come down the court, and Olivia Summiel has a costly turnover. She just makes a bad, sloppy pass, and Fauntleroy steals it, but they can't do anything, call timeout. So another Bears timeout. They inbound. Jada Walker takes a shot, misses it because Claire Strack gets the block and the rebound, and so Virginia Tech calls a timeout themselves. So now there's 39 seconds on the clock. Baylor leads by 3. Virginia Tech with possession. They get it in. Amor takes a shot in the paint. She can't get it because of the defense. Clara Strack grabs the offensive rebound and lays it in for 2. So it's back to a 1-point game, 20 seconds left on the clock. Another really, really important sequence coming up. You know that the Hokies need a stop here. They got that stop earlier after Summiel's turnover, but if that wasn't a turnover, you got to think that Tech could be leading. If they get 2 or 3 there, and then Strack blocks that shot, and then Strack makes her layup, all of a sudden they're up instead of down 1. So they sub out Strack temporarily to bring in Wenzel because they know they're probably going to need a little bit more speed. And they did this several times. Having Wenzel on the floor helps a lot with Jada Walker and the fact that she's so nimble. She was really good at killing time because Tech just couldn't get to her and foul her quickly. So they bring in Wenzel for this next sequence, and they put Strack out on the bench. And, Strack was really helpful on that offensive end with the fact that she can offensively rebound much better than the other players on the team and get a layup in. So, if the Hokies miss a 3, they can come away with some points if Strack can get the rebound and get a layup or kick it back out or something. So Wenzel's back in the game with Amor, Summiel, Matilda Eck, and Kayla King. So coming out of the timeout with Baylor up by 1, there's 20 seconds on the clock. They inbounded Jada Walker, who kind of comes out of a screen down the sideline and then up the baseline for a layup, and Kayla King fouls her, which is really, really not good. This is a super costly foul for the Hokies, as Kayla King doesn't prevent Walker from making the shot. So she gets 2 on this layup, and then she gets a free throw. So now Kayla King also has 4 fouls. What they do is they bring out Carly Wenzel again and bring in Strack to rebound for the free throws, and Walker hits it. So the Bears lead by 4 now with 19 seconds left. Virginia Tech takes a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, down 4, They get it to Amor, who hits a quick shot. Only 3 seconds go off. So Amor hits this ridiculous three with 16 seconds left right in front of me. And I got the coolest picture of that shot. She hits it super clutch once again. Those 2 threes from her in the final 2 minutes, really keeping Tech in this game and giving them chance after chance after chance. So the Bears lead by 1, 73-72, 16 seconds on the clock after Amor hits this three, and Baylor calls another timeout. What Tech does, they sub out Clara Strack once again and bring in Carly Wenzel. Her defense and speed are going to be a big help here. So on Baylor's inbound, they get it to Jada Walker, go figure, and she gets a couple seconds off before Georgia Amor can foul her. Now there's 12 on the clock. They're still not in the bonus yet, so they have to inbound again, and Jada Walker breaks away. She gets several seconds off, and Kayla King finally gets to her and fouls her. That's her 5th, so she has to sit down, and they bring in Strack for her. 5 seconds on the clock now, and Jada Walker goes to the line as they've finally gotten into the bonus. She hits both shots to make it 28 points for her after having 2 at halftime, and Baylor leads by 3 with about 5 on the clock. So Tech has to advance the ball really quickly. They do, and Jada Walker fouls with a little over 1 second left. I think it was 1.3. And Tech now needs to inbound with, between 1 and 2 seconds on the clock and hit a three to go to overtime. Coach Brooks, what he does is he draws up a play for Matilda Eck. As we talked about it earlier, she was really the only Tech player that was hitting threes consistently. So he draws up a play for Eck, and when the Hokies inbound, it gets tipped by the Bears, which starts the clock earlier than they planned on. So it gets tipped by the Bears, and they kind of scramble a little bit, and the ball ends up in Georgia Amor's hands with fractions of a second on the clock. And the way she gets it is she was kind of running from the hoop out to the 3-point line because she knew they needed a three, obviously. And she didn't really get it in a position to shoot. She was facing the wrong direction the way that she had to run out for that loose ball. So she grabs it and she just kind of, almost like a reverse layup under the basket, just lobs it up one hand over top of her head, facing the wrong direction as just a last second hope, just a chance. And she can't get it in. It isn't really even close, but you can't blame her. It was just a brutal shot to take. You're just happy she gets it up for a chance. And, Baylor takes the game by 3 to end Virginia Tech's season. It's their only loss in Castle Coliseum for the entire year. They haven't lost at home since 2022. They won 26 straight games in Castle Coliseum, and the one they lose is in the NCAA tournament. It's just heartbreaking. You've got to think that this game is completely different with Liz Kitley in it. Her interior defense, it would have pushed everyone out a little bit and kept the Bears out of the paint, which they just got into the paint so easily. And, with 36 points in the paint for the Bears and a ton more coming just outside of it that didn't even get counted, you've got to think that Liz Kitley's defense makes a huge difference in preventing those inside buckets and floaters and layups. And then with her on the offensive end and Tech struggling to make threes, just kicking it into Liz and letting her go to work in the post for easy buckets, hitting her signature fadeaway shot. If you get the ball to her, you've got to think that this game does not end like this, that maybe they lose in overtime or probably win by a significant amount. But the cards that Virginia Tech was dealt this year to end the season, just absolutely brutal. So this will be the last game for sure for Kayla King and Olivia Summiel as they're out of eligibility in college. Liz Kitley has already played her last game with us with her ACL tear. Just a tough way to end the year. And Georgia Amore, we don't really know what her decision is. She has one more year of eligibility. We hope she comes back, but with Coach Brooks going to Kentucky, I mean, who knows? She could play internationally. She could just go to the draft. She could come back here for a year, or maybe she transfers. We don't really know. It's crazy to think that this is all happening so quickly, that, Virginia Tech, such a fantastic women's basketball school that they built up over the last few seasons, and now we really don't know what's going to happen with it in the future. We could lose all of our building blocks, and we've already lost our head coach, and you look at it and you say, what's left? But we've just got to hope that we can retain some of what we have, and that the culture and the environment around the women's basketball team and the support that they get from the town of Blacksburg, you have to hope that you can retain something. I'm really concerned that Amore might not come back. I felt that there were two things that might really entice her to come back. One of them being Coach Brooks. She talked about in the presser after the game that he's like a second father to her. When she's here for school and not back home in Australia, while she's here, she says he's like her second father, that they talk all the time and he's always there to help her and just be there for her. And to think that he won't be back here next year, that's just one reason that I worry that Amore might not as well. And then in addition to that, I felt that the only other reason Amore would stay was to lead this team by herself. So I think coming back and leading this team and doing amazing things, and once again, maybe making another All-American team in the AP and such, could really boost her draft stock a little bit with so many super talented players coming for the draft. We already know Caitlin Clark's going. We're sure that Liz Kitley will be there, and some other of the top players in the country like Cameron Brink are going to the draft as well. So you've got to think that if Amore waits another year and boosts her stock a little bit, she could get drafted much higher, but who knows? So those were the two things I thought as the reasons she would stay. But with Coach Brooks leaving, that cuts it down to one. And I'm starting to think maybe she just goes to play internationally or enters the draft. We don't really know what's going to happen. Or does she follow him to Kentucky? Who knows? She's good enough that she could go anywhere, and it's just a huge question mark. In terms of Kenny, we knew there were reports of Kentucky talking with him right before the tournament started. I want to say it was the night before Tech's media availability. There was a report that came out from a Kentucky sports reporter that said they knew some people were interviewing for that role. The only one they could confirm was Kenny Brooks. So it really put a huge question mark in everyone's mind. Obviously, that's the worst time that news could possibly come out, right before the NCAA tournament games. And personally at the time, I didn't think anything would come of it, and it was more of a move to get a raise or just more funding or something like that. And then after the loss, and then Tuesday morning, we hear that he's pretty much the top target, and then later that morning, we hear that he's made a deal with them. He's expected to be the third highest paid coach in women's basketball in the SEC, somewhere around $2 million. It's an understandable move for him, as he not only doubles his salary, but he's got tons more resources for recruiting and hiring staff. I mean, Kentucky women's basketball has their own arena. but it felt like he was going to be here forever. It felt like this was the place where he was going to stay. And it's just tough to see him go after building up this program so well. We don't know what players are going to stay, but we know Samaya Suffren's in the portal, and I'm sure a couple more will follow. In Brooks's tenure here at Virginia Tech, over his 8 seasons, he had a total record of 180 wins and 82 losses. 7 of those 8 seasons that he was the head coach, the team had 20-plus wins. They made 4 NCAA tournaments in a row, the last 4. Their first ever Final Four appearance, an ACC regular season and tournament championship in the last 2 years. And not to mention recruiting and developing some of the best talent in the country like Kitley and Amor, and pulling in other really talented freshman recruits like Clara Strack, who played out of her mind in her first few playoff games, having to take the workload over for Liz Kitley. It's really tough to see Coach Brooks go after doing all of this at Virginia Tech and crafting it into one of the best women's basketball schools in the entire country. And it just sucks, really. It sucks. You can't fault him, as you know he's leaving for a place where he can definitely go win a title. I thought he could win a title here, and I still think he could have. But with the additional funding for recruits and staff, I think it's only a matter of time before he does in the SEC with Kentucky. It sucks to see him go, and I'm worried about the future here for the women's basketball team. But at the end of the day, I think you've just got to enjoy and appreciate everything he did for them here, and just be happy that we got to see it happen. The same thing as Liz Kitley. Obviously, you didn't want it to end like this, and it just, the cards they were dealt at the end of the year, incredibly unfortunate. But you've just got to appreciate that you had that chance, you had that time with the players and coaches. So a really tough start to the week here in Blacksburg, and we'll have to see how things shake out. I'll keep you all updated on any additional entries into the portal for the women's team. On the men's side, with their season over as well, we've seen Lynn Kidd and John Camden enter the portal today as well. So I'll keep you all updated on any new additions to the portal for either team. I guess it's time to get shifted into baseball and softball season a little bit earlier than I expected. So until next time.